Okay, we read The Scarlet Ibis, and I gave you a bunch of questions to answer. The first question was analyze the author's word choices in the first paragraph. What is the effect on the reader of the words dead, born, bleeding, green? Why would he include these words in the first paragraph? So that was the question. And what I'd like to review with you today is a technique for answering questions called the ROSE technique. Now, there are many techniques, many acronyms, and they're all designed to do the same thing. This ROSE technique is spelled with an R, O, S, and E, and it has this particular format. The R stands for restating part of the question. The O stands for adding your opinion to answer the question. The S stands for supporting your opinion with evidence from the story. And the E stands for explain how your evidence supports your opinion. So what you would do in order to come up with a good answer, and you see that I pulled a student answer here from the story. This student said, after the question said, when he said dead, he meant over. And when he said born, he was saying it was just begin. Bleeding tree means the last limb, and green means grass. He may be included them words so you can understand where he is coming from. Okay, and when I read answers like this as a teacher, I have two things in mind. One, I would sometimes be interested in the grammar. And if this was a final example of an essay, I would be interested in the correct spelling and the correct verb tenses. But for answers to essay questions like this, long answer, or short answer questions, I am less interested in vocabulary and grammar and punctuation, and I'm more interested in the ideas. So I would skip by some of the mistakes in grammar, and I would just be looking for what the meaning is. And so this person noticed that there were some words and noticed that they might mean things, and noticed that they might have included the word so you can understand what the author is saying, where he's coming from. What I'm suggesting for writing these answers is that you follow the ROSE technique. In this one, he jumps right into his response where he didn't restate part of the question. And the question was, analyze the author's word choices in the first paragraph. What is the effect on the reader of the words dead, born, bleeding, and green? And why would he include those in the first paragraph? So what you would do is you would select some of the question and you would restate it in your answer. Okay? So we take some of this question and say maybe the effect on the reader of the words dead, born, bleeding, and green. Maybe you would say the author included the words dead, born, bleeding, and green to have an effect on the reader. Okay. So I have begun answering this question by using words from the question in my response. That's the R, restating part of the question. Now I need to add an opinion. Okay, so we have these words, but we don't have an opinion about what the words are doing. And actually, if you look back up here in the answer, that is kind of missing here too. You goes in and analyzes each one of the words, but doesn't say what the overall effect is. So we have the words dead, born, bleeding, and green. And what would the effect be? Would be the effect of, thinking about life and death, or an effect about, understanding the purpose of life. So let's throw that in there. Some kind of statement about the effect of the words. The author included the words dead, born, bleeding, green to have an effect on the reader. The effect would be to get reader thinking about life and death, meaning of life. Okay. Now, if you really wanted to, these could all be one sentence. It could roll right from one into the next. That would be fine. So at this point, we have the restating of the question. We have an opinion. And now we need some support. And at this point, you notice up here, he said the dead meant was over, and born was when it just beginning, and bleeding means the last limb, and green means grass. Okay, so he does have the words, and he's saying something about them. So that would be his support. So we write in here the support. So I'm going to paste his answer in right here. But then I'm going to try to figure out what he really meant by when he said dead, he meant over, and when he said born, he was saying just beginning. So when he used the word dead, he meant that life was over. And when he said born, he meant he was saying it was just beginning. Bleeding tree means the last limb, and green means grass. Okay, we got a little lost right there. Bleeding is probably, if we're talking about life being over and life beginning, bleeding means what? Some kind of injury? Or something bad? Wow. And then we have the word green. Doesn't green usually mean something good? Usually means something good for growing. Okay. And then that would be your support. You've pulled words out of the story and used them in your response. And then the final explanation, E, would be this sentence right here. So I'll pull that down into here. This says he may be including them words so you can understand where he is coming from. So let's do a little DOL on this. He may have included those words. So I'd like to ask you guys to avoid you and I. We'll change this to the reader can understand where he is coming from. What he is saying about life. Because really, if we read the story, it's a story about a boy, his brother, and a bird. And really, the boy sees the bird come to the tree and die right away, but it's a very bright bird. And something similar happens with his brother. His brother is born somehow physically affected, and his brother is only there for a short time and he dies. So maybe the author included those words to show something about life and people coming into our lives and how short it can be, and we need to appreciate it or something like that, or how remarkable it can be to have people come into our lives even though they'll only be there a short while. So we could have potentially put that in the end. So what he's saying about life and the importance of appreciating life. So that would be a long explanation of how to use the rose technique. Okay, so you go to the question, see the question, and as you're writing your answer, you restate part of the question. Then you add your opinion to the question, and then you add some support from evidence from the story, and then you explain how your evidence supports your opinion. And that's what I did. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it's a little bit long. It obviously is long enough that you would get an A, and it has all the elements, so you would get an A. But that is how to do the rose technique. So I will give you a little quiz on how to do the rose technique in a second.